coming to you raw and unscripted. Beaming across Ontario and beyond to places like Casaloma, Wilmot Creek, Honey Harbour, and Sarnia. This is the Real Hickson Real Estate Podcast. Whether you're listening on your commute or putting on your suit, whether it's your morning stroll or you're on patrol, you just finished prayer or dropped the kids at daycare, you're in the bar, your car, or listening with the bathroom door ajar, near or far, this is the Jess and Giro Show. We're grateful for flattery and prone to inaccuracies. This is your guide to Toronto culture, people, events, news, but most importantly, real estate talk. Yes, hello folks, we're back yet again. We're back in the office this morning. And who do we have with us, Jessica?
Our favorite lawyer, or the only lawyer we trust.
The best lawyer, the best in the biz. Jonathan, hello Jonathan.
Hello. I was going to say only lawyer and you took the words right out of my mouth. So.
Yeah, we don't call anybody else. We don't like anyone else.
I'm Jonathan A. Hacohen and people know me as the chosen lawyer at Corman's LLP.
That's right. You got a book out. You can hype yourself up a little bit.
Well, besides, I guess, training to be a professional boxer at one point, and I did a bodybuilding competition. I am also an author, as you said, Jero. Thank you. I just came back now from the States. I was doing a cross United States book tour across Barnes & Nobles and independent bookstores, and promoting my book, The Bible 3.0, The 6 Commandments of the Chosen Life.
There you go.
And which falls in line with my podcast, The Chosen Life, where everybody's either living the chosen life or wants to live the chosen life. So
there you go, cross promotion.
Amazing. We'll link everything.
All the links are going to be there.
Love it.
And so you drove across America 10,000 Ks?
So ended up putting 10,000 kilometers on the car, made it all the way to San Diego, was at Pacific Beach. So it's funny, I was in Arizona and we're here obviously in Ontario, Canada. So we're leaving here, in September. It's about 22, 23 here. It was 45 in Arizona Celsius and 39 at night. It was scorching hot. Couldn't wait to get out of there. Said, okay, gonna go to San Diego. San Diego's gonna be about 22, 23. Nice temperature, everything. Show up at San Diego. They have now got a heat wave out of nowhere, and they've set new records in San Diego. It was only 38.
Oh
Did you leave a trail of tires behind you on this trip? Did you have to change the tires like 5 times?
I'm going to tell you no, but it is actually alarming. First of all, how much construction there is in every single highway in the United States. Secondly, you wouldn't believe how many pieces of tire you see literally everywhere.
Like blown tires on the highway.
Yeah, from that heat.
So I had to get an oil change before I left.
Yeah.
Oil change when I showed up in Arizona the first time.
Really?
Oil change as soon as I got back. Yes, and every time I get them to check the tires, everything.
Holy smokes.
Holy.
Kind of
Literally.
They love me.
But it was worth it, right?
You know what? It's one of those things that people say, how many millions of copies did you sell? What was your goal in this? My goal was when I'm at a store and one person drove like an hour to get there because they were excited about the event. They saw it on social media.
Sure.
And they're like, you know what? I just moved to this area, or I just changed my jobs. I don't have life focus, direction. I need systems. I heard about your book and we talked for an hour. That's worth it. When you know that
amazing.
one person is going to engage in it, and very, very fulfilling. It's available audiobook, ebook, and physical book.
And listen to that voice.
There you go.
I can
Did you do your own audiobook?
I did actually. It's funny because I have a music producer who helped me produce my theme song for my podcast.
Oh yeah?
And I told him, and when I got the book deal, I said, look, I really, really want to do an audiobook. I can't see this book being done without an audiobook. And I don't want to go the traditional route of using an audiobook producer.
Right.
Have you ever done an audiobook before? And he goes, I've done literally everything under the sun you can imagine. I have never done an audiobook. I've always wanted to. We ended up doing the audiobook together because, he gets the levels perfect, everything.
Right, yeah.
I remember our first session and I said to him, we played it back. I'm like, wow, my voice sounds so great. He goes, yeah, that's a $17,000 mic you're talking into.
It better sound great.
And he's on tour with his music. He's a music producer that went back into classical music. And as a fun idea, he started embedding his music into the audiobook and see what I thought. And we loved it so much that at some points in parts 2, part 3, he actually went into the studio like 1 o'clock in the morning, wrote, produced, and recorded original music just for the audiobook. So he's an
Wow.
awesome dude.
There you go.
So you get the best of everything.
There's great people out there. So
That's
shout out to
awesome.
Ron Lopata. Check him out on social media. Ron,
Perfect.
thank you for making me sound good.
And here I am with my $150 microphone.
Yeah, you're downgrading today.
Okay, so I always like to start with, if we're realtors, managers, whoever, we're working with, what we see in the market, but you're a lawyer, you do obviously see a lot. You understand the trends, you feel the trends, because you are a step in that transaction. How do you see your perception of the market right now?
So I'll tell you, every answer is usually with a story. So you both like stories?
I like story. I love story.
Story time is always good. So, I'm reading in the paper one day, and the paper says, there's a glut of so much inventory of condos in downtown Toronto, and nobody wants condos, and the market's dead, blah, blah. I get a phone call yesterday about 7 o'clock at night. I need to put an offer in. It's due by 11. Somebody else put an offer in already. It's firm. I got to get going. Can you review the status certificate for me? Very important.
Right, yeah.
I said, no problem, except we have probably one issue with this, and it's that I believe I'm going to be representing the seller in this one.
Oh,
So if
wow.
I'm representing the seller, I can't do both, and our law firm has a policy is that we don't act on both sides. We used
Right.
to once upon a time, but we said, you know what, for liability, everything else, we're just going to stick to one party.
Right,
So they
right.
double checked, turns out I was acting for the seller. What does that tell you if I'm already acting for the seller on it, and this person comes to me and happens to need this status reviewed? It means that there was an offer already on it.
Yeah.
There's clearly
Yeah.
demand for it.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to tell people, and I tell people all the time, man, if I had a little bit of money sitting in my pocket and I see what the mortgage rates are like and I see what the demand is like, now is the time to buy. The smart people are going in and they are scooping up properties.
Yeah.
They're not dealing generally with bully offers, not dealing with multiple offers. They get to put the offers they want in. They can have a review clause. They can have their mortgage clause in there. They're paying $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 in some cases below what they thought they were going to have to pay a year ago. I tell them, enjoy the good times now.
Yeah.
Because I have been, I've been through this I got called to the bar in 2002. Okay, so I've been doing this for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, you can feel it every single point. You know that when there's a little bit of a lull, it's not dead, but it's not going like gangbusters. It's coming. And I can tell you, once the people pick up and decide we're buying like there's no tomorrow, all those people are going to regret they didn't buy today.
100%.
We're kind of in that sweet spot because interest rates really have come down a lot. Fixed rates especially, as we've explained before, they're not exactly tied to the Bank of Canada's rates. They're almost like speculation rates. They've been dropping. And so if you're getting these new quite low rates compared to what we were having, plus we're still relatively, cheaper than we have been in the past, it's right in the sweet spot.
I couldn't agree with you more.
And it's not going to last.
And think about it this way. You buy that property today and you get it at a good price. And you're like, okay, I like the mortgage, but I'm not thrilled. I wanted the mortgage to be better. What are smart people doing? They're getting 2-year mortgage term, 3-year mortgage term,
Yeah.
4 sometimes.
Yeah.
You don't have to get 5. You can still go variable. Most people I find are going about 2-3 years fixed. And they're like, I'll deal with it then. Because guess what? As the rates develop and everything else, you're going to be in such a good spot in 2-3 years from now because you're going to own the property, you're going to have history. It's much easier to refinance than it is to buy, believe it or not, when you go through that process. As we all know, we've been through it ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And from there, you didn't lock yourself in for a 5-year term. You're getting a pretty good rate right now, and you'll get a better rate then. But if you're waiting for that amazing rate to lock it in, now the amount you're going to pay extra for the property, it's not worth it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. What else are you seeing from like a legal perspective? Current trends that are happening.
So, more story time. So, we talked about, so it's funny how you segue and things come up as far as stories into stories. So, we mentioned that I was going through the United States and I went all the way to San Diego. So, what do I do as a real estate corporate lawyer? For fun, I go on Realtor and I double check and I'm seeing every single area I'm in, what are the properties looking like.
Yeah.
I just right away check and I start beating my head against the wall. I'm in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I'm like, man, for $65,000, you can buy a detached house.
Yeah.
For $400,000, $500,000 in Fort Wayne, Indiana, you're getting a gate, a 3-car garage, the whole of it. But why am
You're
I
like a king.
Oh, it's amazing. Except in Pacific Beach. In Pacific Beach, you are paying through your nose for any crummy little property.
Yeah.
Way, and it's the most expensive from a taxation perspective. But there's something for some segment of people that want to live on the beach in Pacific Beach and California, and you're done, and that's it. But I'm telling you this for a reason. So the perception of what you see where we live in Ontario and Canada versus the United States, very different.
Yeah.
Why is that? Every single area, not word of a lie, except for Pacific Beach, and I would say obviously not Scottsdale and higher end areas in Arizona, but you're going through Ohio, Indiana, Oklahoma, New Mexico. What do all these places have in common? When you're going on Realtor, I would say 1 in every 3, 1 in every 4 properties that you're seeing on there are in foreclosure. That's why. So somebody's got a $64,000 house in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Somebody's got a $100,000 house in Oklahoma in foreclosure. But number one, we are very different where we are in Ontario, Canada versus where we are in the States. In the States, they love foreclosure. We actually take over the property. Here, we do power of sale where you sell the property and you deal with the proceeds. There, you're seeing a lot of properties in foreclosure, not seeing properties in power of sale over here. Also, not just that they're seeing in foreclosure, they're all sold, by the way.
Yeah.
So when I see the foreclosure price, you're not getting them for peanuts. Like, you're paying $65,000 for a Fort Wayne, Indiana house. I can find you the exact same comparable house in Fort Wayne, Indiana for $65,000 as well, and they're both sold. So it just happens one happens to be in foreclosure. So I'm seeing lots of foreclosure in the States, not seeing in Ontario, Canada, but on the same token of it, their prices, you're not getting the house for $10,000. You're not in Michigan,
Yeah.
in certain points of Detroit. But even, people say, oh, I could buy a house for $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 in Detroit. That's no longer the case. That same house you paid $10,000 for 5-7 years ago, now you're paying $50,000, $60,000. And guess what? It's not that decrepit anymore, and the neighborhoods are up and coming.
Yeah.
So what I'm seeing is, if I'm living in Ontario, Canada, as most of our clients are, right? Yourselves as realtors, me as a real estate lawyer with Corman's LLP. What I'm seeing is you watch what's going on in the States, you're thinking, okay, where's my foreclosure? Where's my $10,000, $50,000 house?
Yeah.
Ain't happening, folks.
No.
Ain't happening. So the best what I tell people is, look, if you have a property in Ontario, a small condo that, let's say, sells for $300,000 in the outskirt type area, if it's going to go down, it's going to go down by a relatively small percentage. That's just how it works.
Yeah.
Whereas that house in Toronto, that's $5 million, maybe now you can pick up for $4 million. And you're saying, whoa, $4 million, that sounds like a lot of money to me. So saving $1 million.
Yeah.
So it's all relative.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, we can compare the cultures, of course, between the States and Canada, but it's really hard to compare the market. In the States, I've always said it, there are so many major cities. There are so many minor cities that if that same minor city was in Canada, would be classified almost as a major city. Like, Canada really has one major city, in my opinion, and it's Toronto. And it's the GTA. And the GTA is expanding, and it's the safest bet in all of Canada, in my opinion. And most of the people want to move here. And sure, we went through a transitionary process and an exclusive process in the pandemic where people were thinking of new places to move, and they still are, but at a much less rate. But the reality is, Ontario's where it's at,
I couldn't agree with you both more. I love visiting Montreal, and I love leaving Montreal. No offense to all your Montreal viewers, but go to Montreal in January, February. They do not believe in plowing the streets. They don't believe in plowing the sidewalks. It is horrible. I've been there many times in the winter, and I was there last year. Same case. All the cars feel like they're dented.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of more elevation, but especially in Quebec City.
Yeah.
They got studs in the tires.
But you're looking at Toronto versus... There's no comparison.
No.
And clearly, it's just a different feel. And also, I hate to say it, but like the dirtiness of it and the grunginess.
Yeah.
We don't have... The Toronto, we don't have that.
Yeah.
And then you go to Vancouver. And you're like, whoa, Vancouver, the climate... I'm just talking to a couple people now that I know living in Vancouver that are planning to relocate back to Toronto because they're depressed as heck.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you, I thought about going to law school in British Columbia, and I said, I'm going to scout out. I went to Vancouver in February, and it's would have been around, let's say, February of 97, 98. And I scouted out, went there for 2 weeks. I left after a week and a half. It was so depressing with the gray and the gloomy.
Dreary.
Let's love Vancouver a little bit. It was less than I expected. I expected a much more robust city than actually exists there. Obviously, they have issues with homelessness and people in the streets there as well,
1,000%.
out of control, which is a little bit of a turn off. But these are natural problems that we have. It's more about, that city's more about living in the suburbs and experiencing the outdoors, essentially.
Well, I was going to say, like, in Vancouver, when I was there, just to finish that point, by 9 p.m., almost everything was closed. Like, it was a different feel because of crime rates and homelessness, like you said. Yeah. And the bottom line is this. If I'm going to compare Toronto, the only place I'm comparing to are New York City and Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And yes, granted, different scale of people, different vibe. But let's say Toronto is very much New York light. Fine. Yeah. But look at the real estate prices in New York. For one property in New York, you're going to buy a condominium there. You're going to get 5 condominiums in Toronto in some cases.
Yeah, it's all relative.
Yeah, and I know I've had clients that have come from Tokyo, and they saw what the price is like in Toronto, and they bought 3 condos immediately for their kids.
I mean, I've always talked about that coming from Australia. I'm like, wow, it's so cheap. Well, things are now, obviously, cost of living has gone up, yes, and people are freaking out, and I understand all of that. And even me, I can see the difference. Comparing it to back home, it's still relatively cheaper.
And wherever you are living, you don't have to live in the downtown core. Like right now, we're in Vaughan, Ontario. Mm-hmm. You jump on the 407 highway. You jump, except in rush hour, we're door to door in downtown, 30 minutes, 40 minutes max. Mm-hmm. Almost anywhere anybody is around the peripheral, it's incredible. And you come and, you can see any concert you want, any play you want, eat any kind of restaurant you want.
This is the thing.
Nothing like you're in Fort Wayne, Indiana. There's one Thai restaurant for the whole city. That's it.
Yeah, this was the whole pandemic thing. I'm like, oh great, you can move out to north of Bolton, wherever it is, New York region, somewhere near Simcoe. Oh, fantastic, snowball, let's call it. You now have this house, you sold your condo maybe in the pandemic, whatever happened. You are now able to buy this 3-bedroom house, or you have a backyard. Fantastic, love the house. Okay, what are we doing this weekend? Well, there's this one band that plays at this one pub. They play kind of every week. Oh, okay, that's great, let's go see them. What about after that? There's just, the substance isn't there, and people ended up having to come back into the city. They're just upgrading the Maple Go line.
The whole Go line, the Barry Go line.
Yeah, the whole Barry Go line. There's two rails there, so now they're going to increase. That's just the reality. A lot of people have been moving out there. They've known about it. The pandemic probably stoked that a lot more. But so the idea of living outside of the GTA is there.
I had clients that called me up at the beginning of 2020 as the pandemic was starting, really. And we're still in the infancy of it, and they had, I remember, a beautiful property, let's say College West, Dundas West in downtown Toronto, a house, beautiful house, nice area. I've been there before, visited them. Very few times I ever meet clients in person in their houses like that, but we built a friendship. And they called me up and they said, we're planning to sell the house, we're going to move to Hamilton, and that's it. I'm like, please, Lord, please tell me reconsider this. And they're like, no, no one's ever going to live in downtown Toronto anymore. We're going to get out early. And they send me the listing of what they were buying in Hamilton at the time.
Right.
Nothing against Hamilton, but they bought a World War II style, post World War II style red bungalow. We all know those kind. You've seen them in North York, right?
Yeah.
And this is the kind of thing in Hamilton. Not that long ago, you're paying $300, $350, right? They paid close to $1 million for it, give or take. I'm like, really? Are you sure about this? They're like, yeah. Good news. It was 12 offers for it. We got it. And now we're selling that house in downtown Toronto. We'll never come back. I told them, just remember I told you something. I love you all dearly. So this is what's going to happen to you ultimately.
Yeah.
Your work that you think can work remotely from, you're going to have to come back to work eventually. It's going to happen. You're going to miss all the amenities of Toronto, like you said. Mm-hmm. And guess what's going to happen? That Hamilton property you paid close to $1 million for, you're probably going to take a hit on it. And guess what? That property you sold in Toronto, you're never going to get back for the price that you sold it for.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
This is big, big issues. I really wish you could reconsider it, find a way. Anyways, and I wish them all the best. But there have been a million cases of this. And you read this all the time. People saying, what did I do? Why did I go there? Oh, turns out that in Midland, or I'm in down by St. Catharines in the outskirts by the water, by Lake Erie, my internet reception isn't that great. I don't have my high speed anymore. Yeah. Oh boy, what am I gonna do? And that's a reality.
The best thing about having this podcast is I said all of this as advice for people.
4 years
And you can go back, go check it. Go check the tapes. I said all of this stuff. So let's get into the main topic. We could talk for hours, Jonathan.
And we do usually.
Yeah, exactly.
So main topic, legal planning. Okay, so I want to go through four main things. And this is in order. You can switch the order if you like. First-time home buyers. Let's start with them.
I love them.
What things, smart legal decisions, things they should think about? Obviously, the smartest thing they can do is give you a call. Or I can give you their number, which I usually recommend.
Always, not usually.
So what are you recommending for first-time home buyers? What should they be thinking about?
Can't tell you how many first-time home buyers, by the way, had a lawyer already, and their realtor said, just give him a quick call. We spoke for 5 minutes and said, yeah, I'm firing my lawyer right now. I'm coming with you. It's not happening. and this is one of the things is, people search into Google and they look for rates and they're like, oh, this person's $50 cheaper, whatever. Speak to them on telephone, email them, ask them the right questions, and then you see what kind of responses.
Yeah.
On a first-time buyer, there's so many levels. We could be talking about this for 3 hours, so I'll keep it succinct as I can. But they should be talking to their accountant and their financial planner as well. Mm-hmm. Everything should go hand in hand with it. As far as figuring out which direction they're going to go, the type of property, what's their long-term planning with it, are they going to have a parent cosign, what that's going to mean, etc. The biggest mistake, if you're going to come to me and say, Jonathan, what is the biggest mistake that first-time home buyers make? It's this. So you're a first-time buyer. You've never owned property ever anywhere in the world. This is your first time going at it. And what do most first-time buyers do that's a huge error? They go and they make the most difficult transaction possible on them. They don't buy the simplest property, they buy the most complicated. So what am I referring to? Assignment transactions. So a first-time buyer, they can't find a property, they've been searching for a week, 2 weeks. Oh, this thing has come up on assignment. So somebody bought a property for new construction, usually condo, from a builder developer. The person decided to sell it for whatever reason, and now the first-time buyer is going to buy that contract from the original buyer. Why is this an issue? Why? Simply because very often first-time buyers, scared, confused, and now they've entered a transaction where they're going to have 3 closings. Not 1 closing, not 2 closings, but 3 closings. They're going to close the assignment part with the original buyer that they have to buy their contract. Then very often they have to do an occupancy closing, an interim closing with the builder developer, where they don't own the property, but they have to occupy it and move in there and deal with that closing. And then finally they got the final closing where they get the mortgage, pay up the monies, title goes in their names. By the end of the transaction, they are so bewildered, so upset. Nobody told me on the new construction part of it that I have to pay extra adjustments on top of the purchase price. Nobody told me I have to pay the HST rebate, $24,000, and apply for it back. There's so many issues that can come up. And where this issue very often comes is when they sign those assignment deals and they don't make it conditional on lawyer review. So they bring it to me. They didn't put a conditional on the lawyer review. And they're like, here, I bought an assignment deal. It was such a good deal. I didn't even bother to have you review it. And I'm like, wow, you're screwed, basically. You made a horrible deal for yourself here, and I could have fixed a lot of this for you, and now there's nothing I can... People don't understand. You sign a contract, and you don't make conditional on the lawyer review, and I tell them what's in there, and they don't like it, but you agree to accept it. Otherwise, you're going to try to pull out, and guess what? The other side can sue you for damages. And we get into all that loveliness. So there's so many issues where first-time buyers, if they at least come to me at the beginning, and they say to me, look, I'm thinking about doing this transaction. I walk them through, new construction, condo, house, this area, that area, things to think about. At least they can go in with eyes wide open. And when you go in with eyes wide open, it's usually a much smoother closing for them. Yeah.
I mean, I'm always recommending condo resale is probably the simplest from, a maintenance point of view, not having to think about too much about the structures, obviously checking the status certificate going in for, and this is why these busy markets are bad for first-time home buyers. Never done it before, and all of a sudden they're being pressured into having to try and review this status certificate beforehand, without hardly any conditions, for example. But yeah, of course, and I've always suggested assignments. We've touched on assignments. Assignments for context listeners is basically you're buying a piece of paper from someone that had already bought the pre-construction, and so it's a lot more complicated. It seems like a good idea. For the first one, maybe tough for first-time home buyers. Wouldn't recommend.
We even did it for my second property ever, and I still shudder to think.
We still haven't figured out the numbers. Those numbers are so confusing.
Yeah, it's very complicated.
That statement of adjustments is the most confusing.
But if we're dealing with a resale condo with status certificate where the condo corp gives you this package of documents, they give you a 5-page letter telling you the summary of everything that's going on with this unit, from numbers perspective and lawsuits, etc. And then there's all the financials, the budget, the reserve fund. The one thing I would say, and I know you have other realtors that are listening to this, I'm going to say no to these other realtors that you're doing a mistake, that you should be following Jerome and Jess's lead.
That's right.
It's that you guys actually open up the status certificate and take a look at it.
Yeah.
Do you know how many realtors go and send me a status certificate? It's missing documents. It's the wrong date. It's the wrong unit. And I tell people, you know how embarrassing it is? I tell your client that you went to all this trouble and you didn't bother checking it was the right status certificate. Now you have to go back and order it, because both the client, the purchaser, and their realtor should be opening up those documents. It is in English. They can read it, for most cases.
Yeah.
And see what you can get from it, besides getting the lawyer's summary and the lawyer explanation. Like, interact with it yourself. It's
understand it yourself.
Yeah.
Because
I'll give the summary and the Cole's Notes version of it. If you don't know what Cole's Notes mean, but
we do.
but still, it's your purchase. Read it over.
I've looked at enough of them now to know what to look for. Of course, like, there's some nuances. Hey, there's some legal proceedings here and there. I can't interpret that at all, and that's what the lawyer's there for. But I know my way around a status certificate.
Other no for first-time buyers. I'll say almost any buyer, but especially first-time buyers. Okay, you're buying in a condominium. Please, it's a resale condo. Go with your realtor. Go look at the parking spot and go look at the locker.
Great
Pretty
advice.
please.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many clients went and said, so it turns out my Hummer doesn't fit in that parking spot in that condo.
Yeah.
Because I could fit a Mini or a Fiat. Well, you should have checked. I'll never forget, I had a really experienced realtor that called me up one day and said, we have a problem on a closing, by the way. I said, no, you got the problem. I'm here to help. And he says to me, look, I have these clients and they're amazing people and they bought in Toronto. And in Toronto, Midtown Toronto, you buy these houses around Avenue and Lawrence and Eglinton, and they have those lovely shared driveways, right? And he says to me, I don't think that they can fit their car in the back. And it says that it's there's a garage and a driveway.
Yeah.
So I said to him, I got two questions for you. Number one, when you reviewed this property, went to take a look at it, put in the offer, did you walk the full length? Did you walk the driveway? Did you walk to the back of the property, take a look at the garage and driveway? The answer was no. It was nighttime. It was fun. It was fine. It was, I figured, you know what? I saw it on the MLS with the pictures. Good enough for me. I said, number one, you didn't walk the whole property of your client. That's a big freaking problem. Number two, they have a giant SUV. Did you not think to take the SUV, try to drive it through the shared driveway to the back of the property and seeing how it fits in the garage?
Yeah.
We didn't think of that. But they lied. They said that it fits a car. I said, look, if I take a Mini right now, can I drive it through the shared driveway and get it to the back? He goes, yes. Then it fits a car.
Yeah.
These people ended up having to buy a parking pass and parking on the street, which is where they didn't want to be in life. They bought the property specifically to have a garage and everything else. Test it for the purpose of why you want it. People saying, it was daytime and I took a look in the back and I don't like the look of the back neighbor's yard, and they have all sorts of strange things in their backyard. When did you view the property? I went through it at night. Okay, maybe go take a look what it looks during the day as well. It's not somebody's responsibility to tell you if the other people's next door neighbor looks good and doesn't look good as far as their yard goes. So I tell people, view your property. View it in the daytime. View it at nighttime. There's a train. Did you not bother to double check? Did you not see? Little things that could have been avoided if people had just done a little bit of their own digging. That's all.
Which legally you can't walk away from the deal after for something like that.
I remember being at a property, looking at myself many years ago, standing in the backyard and hearing, I'm like, what's that? That's the GO train, but that's okay. They only come by once a day. That's it.
Yeah.
I went and looked at the schedule. Once a day means about once an hour.
Yeah.
It's pretty loud. And it was a ravine lot, everything else, and it looks so attractive.
Yeah.
But you see it in the outskirts of the train tracks, but I don't know about you all, but I like quiet when I sleep.
Yeah.
But some people don't care.
Yeah, exactly. As long as they know beforehand.
As long as they're aware, exactly.
There are people kind of forget, there are houses all around cemeteries in certain parts.
Sure, quiet neighbors.
Absolutely. And Mount Pleasant, guess what? You're paying a premium to have a condo. And guess what? You're going to have the quietest neighbors ever. But for some people, they don't want that. If that is important to you, I tell people, you know what I do? I go park my car and I go walk around the neighborhood. And I go see what I'm getting myself into.
Exactly.
Not complicated.
Exactly. The next step, so we've got the first time home buyers, quite a lot of things to we can't unpack everything here.
Absolutely.
The second step, investment planning. So now you've had once or twice, you're lucky enough to now have a little bit of extra cash. going back to assignments, that's generally when I'm recommending assignments. Can you get a mortgage for an investment property? If the answer is no, but I still have some cash, then maybe it makes sense because it's a strung out kind of deposit schedule structure, and you can be paying just straight cash for that and worrying about a mortgage later on. But for investment planning in general, what are we talking about in terms of strategies and making sure for title and stuff?
Look, it's I'm going to say on investment properties, it's simple. People lose sight of the fact that like, okay, they get so fixated on, I have this amount of down payment, I can get this amount of mortgage, and I'll be able to close the property. That's all they think about. 99% of investors. And that's wrong. Very wrong. You need to start from the end and work your way back to the beginning. So I tell people you need to make a business plan. And what I want you to think about is, forget all the stuff you need to close the fraud. Anybody can come up with a down payment. Anybody can get a mortgage. Great. You know, in the reasoning for some people. I want you to think about what is the end game for this. So what are you planning to do with this property? How long are you going to hold on to it? When are you planning to let it go? You have to think about taxation from that point of view. Then work your way. Okay, so what's going to be needed to carry the property? You already own the property. Great. Forget about what needed to close this thing. So are you planning to get income in there? Are you planning to live there yourself? Or is it going to be a combination of it? What is going to need to carry this property? And not just if you're buying a resale condo and what's the common expenses, the monthly common expenses, the tax, the hydro. I want you to think about, okay, money for a rainy day. Let's say you have to invest money into this thing. Let's say the kitchen gets destroyed. Let's say if you're buying a house as an investment or a duplex, the roof caves in. Where's that money going to come from? You're going to need buffer money as well. And then you can work back to and saying, okay, how much money do I need to close the property? So people need to have a long-term focus on it. So when we're talking about, okay, how am I going to take title on this thing? I tell people, what are you planning to do with this thing ultimately? And people say, okay, I'm planning to, I'm investing with my dad, and ultimately if something happens to one of us, we want the property to be in the other person's name. Done. Okay, then that makes sense to buy as joint tenants, clearly. If people are saying, okay, I'm planning to run this thing as an Airbnb, I'm going to run it as a hotel, a horse farm, whatever. May make sense to open up a corporation, get an HST number, and then run the monies through a separate bank account with your corporation. That could be smart planning there. And then you and your dad can go and own shares in the company. So this is where, again, very important. This is people come to me as the lawyer, asking me these questions at the beginning. I tell them, you should be coming to me really last. You should be going first to the accountant and the financial planner, figuring out what is the, because everything is tax driven. Every single thing is tax driven. When I was a young lawyer on Bay Street, and they sent me to Tim Hortons to help them do a reorg, and they're changing how they're holding the real estate and how they're doing the franchising. Everything comes down to how do I save money from a taxation point of view.
They'll always get you no matter what.
No matter what. So if let's say the same individual came to me and said, I'm going to open up a Laffa place across the street, they would obviously think right away, corporation, HST number, all this stuff. Think about the same way as you would open up any kind of business as you would in a real estate. That is a business as well. You need to have a business plan. And I've had so many clients that went and I remember this one family, they had 5-6 properties worth millions and millions of dollars in personal names, and their accountant said, no, this should have been a corporate name from day one. You know what they ended up doing? They ended up having to do a transfer from the personal name to the corporate entities, figuring out what the value of the property was on the date of transfer, and they paid full capital gains and capital gains, business income, and land transfer tax. They had a whole bunch of taxation involved because it wasn't done correctly from day one.
Wow.
Ouch.
Yeah. So do the research first. Talk to the people you need to talk to first before you
come up with a strategy.
Call the realtor after the accountant and the lawyer.
Yeah.
And can I give you one little trick of the trade hint that maybe your viewers would like to know? Is this that people say all the time, well, I can always do a trust agreement. A magical trust agreement will come, and I'll say, oh, it was my company's property from day one, even though it wasn't my name. So that should fix it, right? I'll just bring up a trust agreement, and this was being held in trust for 5 years, and that one document will fix all. I told them there's 2 issues with your plan there. Number one, you've been declaring on taxes on your personal name the whole time. Yeah. You're going to come back to CRA and say, because even if, let's say, somebody has a trust agreement out there, let's say they're holding a property in a personal name in trust for their corporation. Because if the beneficiary, the real owner is the corporation, even though they're not entitled, the taxation should be going through the corporation. If they've been declaring on taxes from their personal name, they're going to have to go back and fix 5 years worth of taxes. You know what? That's going to attract an audit. Okay?
The bad word.
We don't like that word
Yeah.
around here.
Well, they don't actually even call it an audit. They say, it's funny.
Assessment?
A client got a letter from the mail and it said, "You are now eligible for a pre-assessment from CRA." I'm like,
Yippee.
you didn't win anything. Pre-assessment's bad, very bad.
Very bad, very bad.
And number two, the government in their wisdom has also said now every trust arrangement has to be declared on the taxes. So starting in the 2024 tax, it was supposed to be 2023.
Yeah.
And they delayed that at the last second and they brought it to 2024. So if somebody is holding anything in trust for somebody, they do have to declare that. So there's no more magical trust agreements that will fix all, because if you had a trust arrangement, you did declare it on your taxes either, there's penalties for that.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Ouch. So
Yeah.
what I'm telling people is set it up right from the beginning. And look, rules can change, taxation can change, clearly. Sometimes in our better, but usually for our worse. But if you set up from the beginning now with what the current rules are, at least you're trying to minimize your damages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please.
Very smart.
So just a whole bunch of different avenues, and as you said, it all depends what you want to do, what's your plan. And this is the way we approach real estate as well. It's not just buying or selling a property, it's what do you plan to do? What are your steps? So I guess the last 2 points are retirement planning and like will kit inheritance. We're entering an era, and last time we did this podcast, we did it with Lahav, and it was about estate sales. We touched on power of sales as well, but also power of attorney. So it's a good segue, I suppose, into, from a legal perspective, what is the smart things to be doing? What's the smart things to be thinking about as this massive transfer of wealth happens over the next 10, 20 years?
Having Levahav Resnick come on before me is like having Guns N' Roses come on and then the opening band. That's pretty big shoes to fill, I got to say.
You're doing just fine.
I do what I can. It's funny because I actually grew up very, very shy. I actually could not utter word like when I was in grade school.
There you go.
And how did I get past my shyness? Working as a teenager at the Gap as a greeter. You learn to get over that real quick.
There you go.
For those of you that need to learn public speaking and confidence, go to the Gap. So, wills, power of attorneys, estates, all that jazz. It's going to come right back. We're back to full circle again, real estate, everything else. Where do we start with? The accountant and the financial planner. Because anybody who doesn't have an accountant, financial planner, and you have any sort of income, any kind of investment aspirations, you have to hire these people immediately and work in unison with your lawyer. So the three people working together and figuring out what is the overall game plan. Again, so many people go and prepare a simple will and they're thinking, okay, this is just going to be easy. I'm going to leave everything to my spouse, from my spouse to my children, and call it a day. That's it. Well, they figure out afterwards, but it's too late. Now all of a sudden we left giant tax bills for everybody. What we should have done is maybe added certain people to title to the property from the beginning. For some people that makes sense. For some people that doesn't make sense. I've had people where, I remember one story where you had parents and they added their son and daughter to the property. Parents passed away. And now all of a sudden, when the kids go to sell the property down the road, they're on title to the property, and now we got a taxation issue. They would have better off, it was the parents' primary residence. They should have sold it as an estate primary residence. They would have paid 1.5% probate, no problem there, versus paying capital gains. So people need to have a bigger picture with this stuff. So maybe we got to open up a corporation. Maybe if we have a corporation, we have to do a dual will. So we make a will for ourselves and one for our corporation holdings. So it's a bigger picture item. Again, I talked about that business plan. And look, even if you are not investing, and if you made the decision not to invest in real estate, which I don't know why you wouldn't, because every wealthy person I know, one thing they have in common, they own lots of property. But for somebody out there that they have their 9-to-5 job, which is fine, they have their one real estate property, that's fine, they have a few RSPs, TFSAs, whatever, you need to think of yourself as a business. And you need to think, how will this business have succession in the future, and make a business plan for yourself. Make a spreadsheet for your current expenses. Make a spreadsheet and decisions as far as where everything is going to get transferred. And once you worked with the financial planner and the accountant, then they're going to make a memo to the lawyer, and we're going to make the wills accordingly to those preferences. So come up with a plan first. Don't make the will and make the plan afterwards. So for those people that do that, they'll spend a little bit of money as far as consultations go, but they could be saving themselves and their estate a lot of money in taxes, bottom line. And have wills and power of attorneys, by the way.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many people come to me and say, Okay, I'm going to be traveling tomorrow. I should have a will and power of attorney. Oh, I'm on my deathbed now. Somebody was in an accident. They can't move. We can get them a power of attorney now. No, don't do these last minute because there's no time to plan for that. In some cases, I'm sorry, but if you are in a hospital in an accident and you can't move, I cannot sign for you a will and power of attorney because you can't sign for yourself at that point.
Yeah.
So things that people don't think about. Somebody was in a motorcycle accident, I remember, and they now can't move. The insurance money comes in, and guess what? There's no power of attorney. They would have spent a couple $100 to do a power of attorney. Now the government has to take over that person. Then they have to apply to the government to take over from the government, and then they can deal with those monies. They are now spending thousands of dollars and figure out all these issues, and if they would have just done a power of attorney, could have saved themselves a lot of headaches.
Yeah, I mean, for Jess and myself, we haven't got this stuff together. We're young spring chickens.
No, we're not.
What are we, like 21 now?
No,
22?
no. We should have had a will a long time ago.
We're in our mid-30s. When, obviously apart from like right now.
Well, we have property. When you have property, you should have a will.
The second you have property, because let's say you have a case, okay, not mentioning you, but let's say you have husband and wife, okay? And typical, they own a real estate property together. They get into an accident, God forbid. One passes away, okay? Property automatically passes to the other one by right of survivorship, right? And then let's say 60 days from there, 90 days from there, that person passes away. Now, there's no right of survivorship. The property just sitting there in limbo, okay? But they didn't even bother making a will. So now you're going to have a bunch of family members that are going to apply to be the executor for the estate without a will. Now we have a lot of disputes because let's say you have two siblings. They're like, I want to be. So now they're going to fight over that.
Right.
Plus, then whoever's the executor, they're going to have to make a plan on how to divide up the property. And then and as an executor, you have liability. If you handed out monies and properties and you didn't follow proper protocol, you can be personally liable for that. Having a will saves those arguments, saves the debates, saves lawsuits. It's a no-brainer. Like, honestly, like at our firm, we charge about $650 per person to do a will and 2 powers of attorney. Who makes the medical decisions? Who makes the property decisions? How about when you have a person who's been in an accident and the doctor has to make a decision on which route to go, and you have 2 family members there, there's no power of attorney for personal care, nobody in charge to make the decisions, and they can't agree on what's the route.
Yeah.
Scary stuff.
Yeah, we're setting that up today.
Today, right now, as soon as we're done, email. Let's do it.
Just quickly, like if someone finds themselves in the executor of the will,
Yes.
as that role, what are they expecting? What can they expect?
You can expect a lot of headaches and a lot of liability. I'm going to tell you that right now. People tell me, will you be? I tell people, look, I know I'm a lawyer. I know I understand stuff. I know that I can apply and have compensation because one thing is, as an executor, you're not doing this for free. There is guidelines by statute of what you're going to be able to apply for based on the percentage of the estate. I don't want the money because I don't want the liability of it. You have to file taxes in a certain amount of time. You have to make sure that you have proper accounting. You have to make sure the distribution. Let's say you distribute everything too early to all the beneficiaries and turns out there's a final tax bill comes to the estate. The executor could be on the hook. So they, again, accountant, financial planner, lawyer, work with these people. Now you're not only in the role of being the person who prepares the will power attorneys for yourself, but if you're acting for somebody else, you have to have these professionals on standby. That's where it says in our wills, you get to hire any manager you see fit, including accountant, financial planner, lawyer, etc.
So get good ones.
Don't do it by yourself. I don't care if your next door neighbor took a couple of accounting classes in community college 30 years ago. Do not rely on them.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it. No. You wouldn't do surgery on yourself, right? One last serious question.
Please.
Can we include Alfie on our will to receive all of our stuff? Can he have our stuff?
What's he gonna do with it?
Can he live it up? Can we get him a little butler?
Look, if you name somebody as your executor and you're saying, I want to give the person X, X, and Y, by all means, you can go ahead. I remember the case where a woman came to me and she said to me, I need to get my will done. And her son drove her in for that. And I told the son, you have to wait in the waiting room, please, because your mother's elderly and I want to make sure you're not any undue influence, no issues, and prepare the will according to her instructions, okay? Then I get a call a month later, I need to change my will, she says. Okay, fine. She comes, now the daughter is there, okay? And now the daughter wants to come into the room, and lo and behold, she wants to change everything to go to the daughter. I took my pen, dropped it on the table, said, this appointment is over. I'm going to tell you right now, your kids are playing you, And I'm going to be sending you a letter telling you that you are being influenced, and I cannot in good consciousness allow you to prepare any kind of documentation without getting proper guidance and to not be influenced by your children. And if you ever do want to get a will change in the future, I would suggest do it on your own without your children driving you, without them influencing you. It's scary, scary stuff.
Very scary.
Because look, I remember getting that call on Monday morning and I need to see you immediately. And the person coming to me on a Monday and saying, I need to deal with my parents' wills, their estate right now, Monday morning. I'm like, when did they pass away? They passed away Saturday afternoon. I said, maybe you want to grieve a little bit?
Yeah.
You know, maybe the body needs to get a little cold. It's scary stuff you see out there. And as soon as you see that, those are giant red flags because there are other...
Money changes people, man. You know, that's the
I have
sad
seen
thing.
so many siblings not talking to each other ever again, seeing parents not talking to their children, all because of money.
Yeah.
And you know, I had one estate where the father passed away, had 3 daughters, decided that all 3 should make the decisions together, everything's gonna be equal. And guess what? They still couldn't get along, and it breaks family. Money does very funny things to people.
So set
Plan.
it all up.
Set it up properly,
So
and not just set it up, but bring them in and have that conversation. Have those hard conversations. Not surprise them from the beyond. And saying, haha, look what I did here. Have those conversations, prep them for it, because it's easier to understand when the person's telling you in person versus after the fact.
So going back to my question, though.
Yes, please.
Can I make my dog inherit my stuff? Can Alfie, my sweet little angel, inherit our stuff? And then we get him a butler, we get him like the best dog treats whenever he wants, walks whenever he barks. We do that?
So, answer is yes. And there are people that have left everything for their pet, and then there's a setup where the pet will be looked after and everything comes out. Absolutely.
I love that.
That
That's
has been
great.
done. What you can't do, you cannot, let's say you love your car. You love your car to pieces. You can't be buried in your car.
Oh.
There's like...
Can you be buried Viking style with your stuff in the ground?
I wouldn't tell anybody that the stuff's in there because
I've
been watching too many episodes of Power, and I know that people, when they know stuff's in there, like there are some cultures, by the way, all kidding aside, that they are known to be buried with money and jewelry. And between the funeral home, the undertaker, and people that are aware of this, that's pretty scary because I will bet you at least half the time the stuff is not ending up in the ground.
Wow.
We put a couple of coins in the pocket.
I feel like that's a whole nother episode. On a whole nother podcast.
We could just write a sitcom, actually. We can make a whole different pilot for that. That'd be interesting.
We could do that.
Yes.
Well, maybe we should remove this part because people are going to steal our ideas, Jonathan. Okay, any final mentions? I mean, the one thing you've said the whole time, accountant, financial planner, lawyer.
Don't wait till the last minute.
Don't wait till the last minute. But is there any final thoughts that you think need to be mentioned?
Yes, absolutely. And it's this. That you know as realtors, myself as a real estate corporate lawyer, is this. No matter who you are, no matter what your age, your ethnicity, your race, your net worth, what I will tell you is this much. No matter where you are in life, is don't model yourself after people that are not successful. Find somebody that has done very well for themselves. Somebody that's in real estate. And you know what? If you are that person that has been renting for 30 years... I've had people that at 60 years old are first-time buyers.
Amazing. You
know, and start building themselves some wealth. That person who's 30 years old, and now they meet somebody else who's 30, and that other person has 5 properties already and have passive income. No matter what place you're in life, there is opportunities out there to grow yourself. And a mentor once told me, you know, I work a 9-to-5 job. I'm never going to be a billionaire from that. My job is seed money. That's to plant seeds to grow real wealth. So whether you're going to go and invest in stocks, whether you're going to go invest in real estate, one thing I will say is, again, I'll bring it back home. My wealthiest clients, every single one of them that have been through my doors, they have different jobs, they have different family backgrounds, but they all have one thing in common is that they invested in real estate. And the people that I know are most successful are the ones that own multiple properties. Get those professionals on board with you. Again, you would talk to the lawyer, the accountant, financial planner. If you need to get a property manager, and talk to your insurance person, and get past that barrier saying, this is not for me, I can't do this. Because there's so many people that had no clue what they were doing whatsoever, went and bought their first duplex, made a ton of mistakes, learned along the way, then bought their second property or the third property, and now they have $5 million in equity just because they did it right and they sat on their property. So to those people out there that's saying, that's not for me, it's for somebody else, look at those people, have those conversations, get mentors from people who are ultra successful, and maybe start mirroring them better.
Yeah, and I mean, to give that context, it's hard for that to apply absolutely everywhere in the world, but at the very least, the GTA, Ontario itself, I always call it a blue chip investment. You know, as long as there's one person going to be living there tomorrow than there was today, real estate's going to continue to trend upwards.
Jero, I remember I had a client, he was 30 years old, he made $50,000 a year, not that long ago, squeezed together every penny to buy a place. There was 3 floors, he lived in the basement, rented out the first 2 floors, built up enough equity. Within 5 years, he refinanced that property. The property went up by $200,000-$300,000. So pulled all the money out, used it for the down payment for the next property, and then within 7 to 10 years, he's now living in a 4,000 square foot house, and well on his way to paying off 2-3 properties. So if they can find a down payment, and if they have the right business plan and model, that the places will almost turn itself and break even or make money, it's a no-brainer for a lot of people. So do that, talk to the right people, but again, it's getting the right realtors in first, getting the right mortgage broker in place, get the lawyer, get the accountant, get your team together, and figure out, you know what, there's something out there for everybody.
Yeah. Fantastic advice. Thanks, Jonathan. There's just so much to unpack. We might have to have you on again just to cover some more stuff. But, you know, just as a teaser, as a taster for the people, a lot of stuff to think about. We have some great advice here today.
Read the book.
Yeah, read that book as well.
Yeah,
Name of the book again?
It's The Bible 3.0. Google The Bible 3.0. Going on, it has its own Instagram account. I'm Chosen Lawyer. And please reach out to me. You have questions on real estate, corporate, life, systems, whatever it being. I'm very accessible. I do respond back.
Yeah.
So you like what you hear and you're saying, hey, where can I go with this? The best experiences are when people hear our stories and then they're ready to share their stories. Exactly. So I want to hear your listeners' stories. Please send in your stories.
There you go. There's the plugs there. Of course, Hacohen Real Estate on Instagram and YouTube Shorts and TikTok and all the major social platforms. Not Snapchat. We're not on Snapchat.
No, we're too old.
And not MySpace, right?
No. Hey, maybe that's fun. We should start a MySpace.
I don't think it exists.
Maybe we can buy it back.
They do a lot of MySpace music these days.
I'm going to ask Jeeves about that.
All right, guys.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.